Bass Case Season 2, Episode 25, 12th Fret and Beyond, Part 1. 12th Fret, you've seen it. You know, it's where the double dots are on your neck. And it's the equivalent to thumb position, or what we might call fourth position on double bass. Another way of looking at it's the halfway point of the string. And it's also no man's land for many bass players. But if you're not familiar playing in that region, you should start. Most of what you play in the lower regions can be played in that upper neck region. And to make things easier, on most basses, that high part of the neck is marked the same as the back end. That dot that is on the 15th fret of the A string is C, just like the first dot on the back end of the neck of the A string is C. And all the rest of the fret dots comport to that same way. And if you're not familiar with that area of the neck, there's no shame. I mean, we don't do a lot of playing, and that's not really what attracted me to the instrument, was playing in that area. But then eventually I got turned on to it. I saw players playing there, and I heard lines. But if you're not familiar, start simple. You know, I can't think of how many times I've played this, but you have a drummer grooving a bossa groove and as an intro, and you want to come in with a slide, and that first chord is C minor. You start that slide from the high C and land on the low C. Same string, right? It was right there on the A string. Here it is. Here, I've got an audio for you, and I'm going to do this on YouTube also. So here it is. Here's number one. It's just a slide from high C to low C, and then landing into a Latin groove. Number one. Okay, and some basses start from random places, and that works too, but I like to start from the root or the fifth. To me, it makes sense to connect the dots like that. And some people love that slide down, you know, or a gliss, or glissando as it's called in the classical world. Okay, so that's a simple way to get into that. Now, here's yet kind of a graduated difficulty. Work out your scales in that region. That will help you know the area better. Here's a couple of me playing in the upper region. Here's number two, just some scales in the 12th fret and above. Okay, and then you're going to notice that playing in that region is faster. The frets are smaller, and you can move in tighter patterns. And the beauty is it cuts through, too, especially when you're playing lines on the G and D string in that region. And the timbre, you know, the way the instrument sounds is vastly different when you're playing 12th fret and above than when you're playing in the lower region. So it's got its own, you basically have two instruments in many ways, because most people, when they think of a bass player, they think of playing in the low end, but then you've got this area that allows you to almost function as a guitarist. Okay, now here's some lines. And listen to these. These are just solo lines. It's one or two solo lines I'm going to play for you on number 3. So here's number 3. And like I said, they cut through. People get excited when they hear bass players play effectively in that region, mostly because you don't hear a lot of it. And you really don't want to hear a lot of it. The low end is where we live, and it's important in serving the music to lay most lines in the low end region. You know, it supports the music better, and someone has to play down there, and most music's built from the ground up, and someone has to play down there, and that's us, bass players. But there's openings in the music where the upper region gets important, you know, like a bass solo, you know, or maybe you want to play the head, you know, the melody. That's really cuts through. Here's number 4. Here's blue bossa in that region on a 4-string. And many heads, many melodies, many lines fit really well on the bass, and they fit even better on that region of the bass. You know, try playing blue bossa and doubling with the saxophone player and see how that works. You got to be sure you match the player's articulation and phrasing. But it's a quirky area for a bass player to work. And you can do some things on there to kind of elevate your line. There's a recording by Toto, Africa. And the bass player, David Hungate, plays a little 1-bar line in the upper region. He plays it twice. It's tasty the way he does it. Most of his groove is in the low end, and then towards the end of the tune, he plays this nice little 16th note line. You know, like I said, the whole tune he lays low, and then right before the fade out, he plays this hip little 1-measure 16th note line in the upper region, and then he comes at it again. Here it is, number 5. I'll play it, Hungate's Toto lick. Now, like I said earlier, practically anything you play in the low region can be played in the upper region. But if you're using an open string or 2 in the back end stuff, you're going to have to realign the fingerings to play it up there. But you can walk some lines up there too. Just don't hang out there too long. It doesn't serve the music right. But if you got a Barry player soloing in his lower region, that might be a good time to walk some lines up there. Here's some walking in the upper region, B-flat blues. Just the typical walking bass line, but up an octave or 2. Here's number 6, walking in the upper region. like I said, you don't want to hang around there for too long. You're going to irritate some people, right? So, but there are places to put it in. Okay, now here's couple more. Here's an exercise in thirds that I use for students to loosen up in that region. So here's number 7. It's just a simple little, you've heard me play this before in the lower region, but just a major scale, but in thirds. Number 7. Okay, now there's one more to check out. And these are all over the place. On Sonny Rollins' Blues 7 from his album Saxophone Colossus, the bass player Doug Watkins starts his line up there. It's a B-flat blues. He does it on double bass. But here it is on electric. So here's Doug Watkins' line on Blues 7, number 8. Okay, play with it and find your voice up there. Don't ignore it. Like it's part of the instrument, and many, many bass players play up there, but you got to find your own voice up there. If you have questions, email me at phil@basscase.co. I'll talk to you soon.